Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming to our Law Week event, Living Free of the System, Designing Services for Women Leaving Prison. I'll just let Jackie start.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm part of the Women's Leadership Group and I've got lived experience. I'd just like to do acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that this land was never ceded. This has always been and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to bring attention to the crisis of Aboriginal deaths in custody and acknowledge the ongoing effects and advocacy of families of those who have died at the hands of our carceral system to see justice and accountability. Thank you.
And I'm Sarah, and I'm a part of the Women's Leadership Group. I've been part of this group for the last 2.5 years. I also have this experience. And yeah, that's my introduction.
And Caitlin, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Coleman. I work at Flat Out, and I worked for about 18 months up until December last year on a program at Flat Out that worked particularly closely with a legal service and was designed by these women here to work with women to get them bail and support them in the community while they're on bail instead of being on remand.
Thanks, Caitlin. And my name's Megan Pearce. I work at Fitzroy Legal Service, and my current role is managing lawyer of our social action and public interest law team. And I was involved in setting up a project a couple of years ago now, the project that Caitlin's referring to, and the project that I guess is the context for our Law Week presentation today. And I was also involved in connecting with Sarah and Jackie here, who became members of the Women's Leadership Group, who have been involved in the design and advocacy agenda of the project that I'm talking about. We were hoping that Jill Pryor from the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women would be joining us today. Jill, are you there? She might have been held up, but we will press on with the conversation in her absence, and hopefully she can join us shortly. So, as I said before, the context for our presentation is the project that Caitlin, was referring to earlier, which is called the Women Transforming Justice Project. And that project was a integrated and intensive bail support program for women on remand that aimed to link in with women before they were taken into custody, enhance their prospects of bail, and help them find some safety and stability in the community. The project was evaluated by the Centre for Innovative Justice, and we, from the pilot project, emerged some really key elements of what we think helps to support women to avoid incarceration and to find safety in the community. And so it's those things that we're keen to talk about today. I had a question for Jill, which I will just canvass in her absence. I guess before turning to what helps, before turning to the elements of support services and what we need in the community to help women avoid incarceration, we thought it would be helpful to canvass those things which drive women's incarceration. And I guess in short order, they are a combination of histories of family violence, including in childhood and in adulthood. We also find that women disproportionately experience a range of disadvantages that see them land in custody, and they include economic insecurity and poverty. Women are more likely than their male counterparts to be homeless before entering prison and to experience housing instability on release. Women are also often criminalised through the policing of family violence, and Women's Legal Service have done some really interesting and valuable research into the misidentification of women as perpetrators of family violence. And for Aboriginal women in particular, there's institutional racism and the ongoing legacy of colonisation and genocide. And the combination or constellation of these circumstances often culminate in women's contact with the criminal justice system and see them land in prison. So I'll turn over to our panellists now. In light of the things that I just outlined, Sarah, how do you think we should be responding to ensure women are best placed to find stability and safety in the community and avoid incarceration?
So firstly, I would like to start off saying, you know, prisons do not work. There's a misconception that prisons are a place of healing, though the truth is that they do not rehabilitate or deter people from offending. They do not provide healing and direction towards a better way of living. Prisons take, and they don't give, besides contributing to further harm. Prisons are not rehab facilities. We see a lack of public rehab and detox facilities readily available and accessible to those in need. They have extensive waiting lists, and the process to receive a bed is complex. Just that is enough for people to give up. I have seen prisons used specifically as a detox facility. A friend of mine was told that the reason she was being incarcerated was to dry out for 10 to 14 days. And this had a detrimental impact of her life, to her life. So yeah, and prison is not a home. Like, you know, prison is not home. And like, you know, bail is refused based on no fixed address or homelessness. We need accessible housing and public wait lists, again, extensive. So there's a common theme there, like, you know, public housing. I mean, yeah, extensive wait lists.
Absolutely.
I didn't stand a chance of receiving bail because I didn't have a stable address. Prison was the only option unless I had to live in rehab to be bailed to. There wasn't one available. The only rehabs that have beds immediately are those that cost tens of thousands of dollars. I did not have that financial stability, and majority of women incarcerated do not have access to that kind of money. Prison does not address mental health and other healthcare needs. We need to see again immediate accessibility addressing mental health support in community as well as other healthcare needs. Again, we see extensive wait lists. Prison just masks problems rather than addressing the underlying issues. These cannot be addressed within the walls of prison. Money needs to be diverted from prison into the community sector, but services cannot be surveilled. When I was bailed to a residential rehab facility, I could have had serious consequences by breaching my bail conditions of not following the rehab rules. This breach was actually really minor, and that could have had major consequences as my bail conditions stated that I needed to ensure I had adhered to the rules of the rehab. This breach was attending the local Christmas carols event on my own, as no lead tenant and no staff were available to take me, and my attendance to this event could have been enough to send me back to prison. Luckily for me, the staff did not follow through with breaching me to the police. Others are not so lucky. This is seeing people needing support and these facilities bound by court orders and bail conditions. This can contribute to straining relationships and cease conflict between staff and residents due to the pressure from the court system and the risk of reincarceration. This is a person's life, not a game. It's like the system is playing Russian roulette with people's lives and their outcomes. This needs to change, and it starts with community support and resources, not carceral punishment.
Thanks, Sarah. I mean, you've made some really important points there, and a lot of what you've said, I think, has really also been highlighted by things like the Mental Health Royal Commission recently. And for those watching, you might have seen that there's been a bit of press about what we need to address the over-incarceration, particularly of Aboriginal women and women in Victoria. And so, yeah, the points you made should absolutely be taken into account as we formulate the best response. Jackie, I'm interested to hear from you. Having heard what Sarah said about what doesn't work, you know, surveillance, long wait lists, really strict conditions on the services that people need in order to be perceived as rehabilitated. What do you think we need to be investing in the community? And what kind of supports do you think work?
I think that supports that don't have surveillance are really important. I think surveillance is so detrimental to women. Reaching out, for myself, I've reached out and had surveillance play a really huge detrimental part in my recovery and life. because people just don't want to do it when they're being surveilled. A lot of government funded services and a lot of services full stop do surveillance, and it's a really big issue that needs to change, and funding needs to be diverted from services that, well, not services that are doing it, but from the castle system. Funding needs to be put into community services that aren't surveilling women, and building community, building friendship, building sorry, I've lost what I'm saying, because I was actually going to talk to surveillance, so I'm sorry.
You've talked to me a lot about
and it's hard also for women to reach out when they know that they're going to be punished for reaching out. So I think that's pretty much it. Just needs to be diverted into community, and it's hard to explain what community looks like because we haven't been really given an opportunity to build on that, because no funding gets put into community without surveillance, or now a lot within the magistrates and stuff are actually refusing to bail people to services unless that service is willing to have the woman or the person bailed to them, and that's surveillance in itself. And people were doing it to get released, but then they're getting released, and it's just causing this whole snowball of issues, because they say one thing and then another service gets involved, another service, and they're just never building on their own strengths. And community will focus on that and build on women's strengths and women's way forward. I really believe that that's the way forward out of prison, and it's like almost a lot of these services are prisons onto themselves. That's how I feel that things are changing, or well, are. And sometimes I think people will, I know of people that just say, well, I might as well be in prison, even though they're out and they've got the service sector, because that's just how it gets to a point where they just want to give up. So I think that that's what we really like the Women's Leadership Group, for example. Community, that's community. We've got a community onto ourselves now, and we can reach out to each other and support each other and lift each other up. And this is the kind of thing that funding needs to go into and push people forward and just help them. And it just, even just being part of this group has built so much confidence. My mental health feels better. And, I've been out for a really long time now, and this group plays a really big part of that. And I think that's where we need to put funding and things. So, yeah, sorry.
No, thanks, Jackie. That's really helpful. And I'm completely putting you on the spot here. But,
that's okay.
I wanted to follow up a question. I'm just really interested in what might go through a woman's mind when she knows that there are reporting obligations on her on the services that she's working with. How can that be a barrier?
It's a barrier because I actually believe that women are actually dying because of it. And that sounds really severe and serious, but it is, because they're not voicing what's going on for them. They're just because it's a tick box thing with the services. Okay, so this is happening, that's happening, and they refer them on. If they're not, they just, and I know women that have done it, that they just will not just tell them what they want to hear. And it's not that there's no growth there. There's just it's like another detriment on them. And your mental health declines that when you feel like, and it becomes like if you feel like you can't trust people, and then that leads out, once you do that for long enough, it leads out into other factors of your life. And we're already traumatized from being in prison and from having all these negative impacts on us, that's not what we need. It's not going to help. It's not going to work. So, and it's not working. It's showing every day that it's not working. So, for myself, I once reached out after being drug free for a really big period of time, and I felt that there was an issue that was going on where I felt like things could be going down for me, and I reached out. And because of the surveillance, they then contacted other services, child services, things like that. And it really took a toll on my life. And it also affected my daughter's life, and this is what's happening. It's becoming intergenerational, because they went and spoke to her school, and it's not like the school would tell the child, but it does, then it affects my relationship with the school, and it just keeps going. And that's one example of a flow on, but and now I will never reach out again. For anything, and this is what's happening to other women as well, and it's really dangerous.
Thanks, Jackie, for sharing that experience. I'm keen to turn over to Caitlin, who, so Caitlin was I'm just going to let a few more people in, excuse me. Caitlin, as she said before, worked on the Women Transforming Justice project. And Caitlin, I'm really interested in the insights that you have about working with women in ways that avoid the kinds of issues that Sarah and Jackie have raised today.
Thank you. Yep. Look, as Sarah and Jackie described, that their experiences we see over and over with so many of the women who come through the Women Transforming Justice program, and also the women who are on our general flat out outreach support and advocacy program. Yeah, just on that point of surveillance and the reporting back that support services are obliged to do when they're funded by corrections or when they're part of the justice system, that can be a barrier to women engaging with those services, even though they're there to supposedly support the woman to access different services in the community. And an example of that is a woman who I met with who had just been referred to us, and she was very, very reluctant to trust and to talk to me about what her needs were. And she just keeps saying, I don't know where this is going to go. Who are you going to talk to? So I spent quite some time describing to her about Flat Out's our values and our approach and our abolitionist stance, and also how Flat Out spend about half our workplace efforts or organisational efforts on systemic advocacy to try to change the system, and we don't take any corrections money funding or anything. So we are completely separate from the system that these women are caught in. So once I was able to describe that to her, this woman opened up over the course of the cuppa and told me how she was managing to self-detox or trying to self-detox from ice, which, as we know, is a very, it's a great health risk. And she was afraid to reach out for help, even from the alcohol and other drug services, because she was afraid of where that information would go, because one of her bail conditions was to abstain from illicit substances. And it's not uncommon for bail conditions to have that, to not drink alcohol or not use drugs. Whereas there's no detox facilities or even drug and alcohol assessment and treatment that's available on the instant that someone is granted bail. So yeah, so yes, our separation from the system that is controlling and mandating these women to work with them, that was a really strong part of the program and what we were able to offer. And also the program is voluntary as well. So it's up to the woman. If she wants to engage with us, we tried really hard not to be even part of the bail conditions, even though the magistrates were very enthusiastic about the support that Flat Out can provide. So they often want to incorporate, to mandate the woman to work with us, but we try to resist that as much as possible. Because we know that, as Sarah and Jackie just said, if a woman, if she's ready to change and wants to change then, and to get treatment and support, then she'll do it then. I actually, there's another woman who was on our program and has come leaps and bounds in the last year since she was released. She said to me, mid-lockdown in winter last year when I was around there with the car boot full of donated groceries that people gave us to give out to people, she said to me, this is so, I'm going so well because this is the first time in 8 releases that I have actually received the support that I've needed and that I've wanted to receive. So the program's able to assist people, you know, where they're at. Another quite different element that we're able to provide in this program is the quick response. So the referrals come in through the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women, which I can see Jill Pryor is now with us under a pseudonym. And so, yeah, so there's a really quick referral process where when the lawyer refers a woman, then we start working with her immediately, whether that's writing a court support letter or getting down to the court that same day, that same morning, and being in court with the woman to commence support there and then if we haven't managed to speak to her in the cells or Dame Phyllis Frost, we're able to provide her with that support and really practical support. And that's what the Women's Leadership Group asked this program to do. Book a hotel. Often, as you mentioned, Megan, women are homeless when they go into prison and often made homeless by being in prison. So booking a hotel for a couple of nights, we had money where we didn't, so we could just do that. We didn't have to apply through another agent, a housing agency to get that money. We could give them food vouchers for that night so they could eat. So they're relatively safe in that accommodation. And transport to get there. I picked up a woman about 4 o'clock on a rainy August night. She was standing outside the Melbourne Magistrates Court where she'd just been released. She'd borrowed a stranger's phone and got the number from the court support letter, rung me. She had no shoes. She was inappropriately dressed. She was there in a t-shirt. It was rainy and cold. She had her period and had no products for that. So I could pick her up, take her to Kmart, get things, and take her to a hotel. So that immediate response, and then we can work from there the next day, or on the Monday or whatever.
Thank you so much for that, Caitlin. I actually have a few unprompted follow-up questions for you. One of the things that was really highlighted in the Centre for Innovative Justice's evaluation report was the value of the outreach model of working. And I was just hoping you could expand a bit on what that looks like for you on a day-to-day basis. And
look, outreach is really helpful when just in order to be there and to not require so much from the woman themselves to have to turn up at it, well, to get somewhere and turn up at an appointed time, and be in your office environment or whatever. Particularly a lot of the services that are mandated, the support services that are mandated by court are at court, so the woman's having to go through security and the surveillance and the police presence there, and just the awful place that is the court, having to turn up there for their weekly appointment. So to being able to do outreach on her turf, wherever she is, we could meet her at housing access points if we've got to, trying to make a referral to get her housing. And look, the flexibility is really important as well, that we're able to, we do what's called assertive outreach. So a lot of programs, they might ring someone 3 times, and if she doesn't answer or doesn't turn up to her appointment a couple of times, then that's it, and they'll say that she didn't engage. Whereas we know that when you're homeless and struggling to get food and worried about your kids and whether you'll be able to see them, and you've usually or often got health issues as well, then seeing a supposed support worker who's a do-gooder and going to have their own big assessment, and then you'll be waiting weeks to get in, or they'll just be not fulfilling their own requirements rather than your your requirements, then you're a lot less likely to have that as a top of a priority when you're in crisis and just trying to survive and stay out of prison. So yeah, we do lots of different creative ways to try to find people and engage them and build that trust, and really, as I said, be guided by them. And you know, our job is to take on the grunt of making referrals and following them through, and doing that follow up, and the strong advocacy for women to be able to access support services that should be there for everyone, but often have significant barriers that excludes women with criminalised history, or even with pending court matters. So yeah, we do that sort of take some of that burden from the women.
Thanks, Caitlin. I mean, I remember when I was in the early stages of the project and doing a lot of consultations about what it could look like. And one thing that came through really strongly was the value of outreach. And I remember making the point to me, and it really hit home, that, particularly for women who will often have caring responsibilities, and by virtue of the fact that they are often disproportionately experience things like homelessness, alcohol and drug treatment and support needs, family violence, mental health and other health-related concerns, will, once they are in contact with the criminal justice system, often have an obligation to engage in counselling. They might be connected with they might have child protection proceedings, and there'll be a whole lot of things that they need to do to sort out to meet the court's requirements. Sorry, you're nodding. And just getting to all of those appointments is a huge administrative burden, and one that, those of us with a roof over their heads would find challenging, and access to a car and money for public transport and a phone would find pretty challenging to sort out in our day-to-day lives. And so the expectations that we place on women who are in these circumstances are enormous. And the idea that someone can help them with their transport and all of that, we can't overemphasize how important that is.
It shows caring as well, just in the fact that you're willing to come and see me where I am in life and accept me for who I am, and not expect me to come in and sit in a sterile environment where you're telling me I need to be doing this and I need to be doing that, but you're willing to come and see me. Like, even with the food, like that, when I was in Christ, that would have been just like a dream. Like, that just didn't happen. Yeah, and sorry, you go.
No, you keep going.
Oh, sorry. And just, it would have just been a complete dream, and it would have also made me feel like, okay, this service actually does care about me. Like, they do want to work, like meet me halfway, rather than that power imbalance where you're going to do this, or you're going to go back, or we're going to report you back to parole or the prison or whatever. It's just like, well, yeah, why would I bother? And if it came to milk and a ticket, obviously you're going to get milk. So again, a poverty thing, and there's just so it's just amazing. And I really do believe that we'd be keeping women out and keeping women safe as well.
It's about meeting people where they're at, and like being able to have that, instead of having to follow the tick boxes and having to follow, like there's consequences attached to, to the court, to the services, everything like that. There's always consequences. Whereas, sometimes you're not even, like, you don't need all that assessment. You just need some help, immediate help there and there, like emergency help. Like, you don't need referrals here, referrals there. It's just like the resources, should be available there and then to be able to provide that immediate, like, urgent support that is required. A person has anxiety hectically, and is like, it's like for people who have a roof over their head, like, honestly, like, and then like how hard that is sometimes to get out of bed. Sometimes it's so hard to just, have a shower. Sometimes it's like the biggest task of the day. Like, imagine being like buried under so much pressure and so many things, and having consequences at the end of the day if you don't try to meet those requirements, and then you end up in a cell because you can't meet requirements that are deliberately designed, right, for people to fail. It's just like, people are set up to fail, and this is like like what's happening like with this group and like what's happened, with the Women Transforming Justice and the outreach and, meeting people where they're at and being able to provide immediate assistance, like that's where it's at.
It's going to save lives.
That saves lives, yeah. So I really got into
You're right. That's great. It's really powerful.
Jill, are you there?
I am.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to ask you a question. I guess having heard what you've heard about what Caitlin, Jackie and Sarah think would, stem the tide of women's incarceration in Victoria, is there anything you would add to their observations?
Well, I think what everyone will be observing tonight is if your lawyer turns up, that's a start for not going into custody. Some are not as tech savvy as others, but anyway, you can call me Amy Shaw for tonight. Look, I mean, these are, I don't need to say anything because these guys have said it all. And the reason women go to prison is because we have a system that says this event occurs, that's a law that someone in Spring Street said is important and, drawn from community values, and some of those laws have been around a long time. And if you breach that code, then the consequence is that somebody becomes involved. And then from there, that person gets presented to a court, and from there a decision is made about what happens to them. And in our system, a system that is designed by human beings, we have 4 options really, and they are that you start off with a fine or a good behaviour bond, you get a corrections order, and then you go to prison. And that's not a very long road. So, I mean, what we're talking about, and these two have talked about the immediacy of a response, and Caitlin, I miss you. That meeting of lawyer and client and outreach worker is magnificent, because no one here, I haven't heard anyone talk about, oh, well, the law is very interesting and sentencing principles are interesting. And because actually what's important to the woman presenting before the court is the issue that brings her there, the things that are happening for her. And if we continue as a community and as a legal system to respond to those women where they are before a court with a legal sanction that is sometimes unattainable, is not able to be met because there's all these fundamental basic living conditions that are not available, then, that's the reason Dame Phyllis Frost is packed to the rafters. And I might say, interestingly, more so in recent months, as we see a return to normal, and that's a pretty tragic indictment on us all. Was that your question, Megan? I'm pretty sure that was the answer. We need to actually respond to women as they present in courts, at police stations with criminal charges, by unpacking what is happening for her, responding to those needs, and the legal part can wait. I mean, the legal part is almost always a response to the other things that are happening.
Jill, the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women, which you head up, it operates an integrated model. I'm not sure if that's the way you describe it, but that's how I would describe it. And that kind of model was also the basis of the project that Caitlin and you were involved in.
Yes.
I'm interested to hear from both of you, but Caitlin, I would like to hear from you first about the benefits of working with a support worker alongside a lawyer.
Yeah, look, we at Flat Out, as outreach workers, we're often working with lawyers, and generally it's actually, I'll start with what we got from LACWA as opposed to what we often get from other lawyers, from other services or whatever, firms. it's the immediacy of communication and the close cooperation that we have with the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women Lawyers. We all had each other's mobiles and would often talk. Often it would be daily in sort of the lead up to us, you know, going to court and taking someone on and doing the first bits of work with them. So being able to get hold of your lawyer is a wonderful thing, and we could often facilitate the contact. A lot of women, they literally don't have much at all, including losing their ID, losing their phones, as they're victims of crime, or they're taken into custody and can't get their stuff back, or whatever, a million reasons, and being homeless and transient as well. So we could meet with women, find them, meet with them, give them a phone, and also facilitate their access to the lawyer by using our phone and ringing at the time. And then really I felt it was really the three of us, the woman and their worker from Flat Out and their lawyer, working very closely together as a team on the goals that the woman's wanting to achieve, and to get assistance, different assistance from each of us. We're both, the workers are skilled in different things, and the woman's skilled in knowing what her issues are and what help would be helpful for her. So I think that close teamwork made for, I reckon, Jill, I'd be interested in what you think, but it seemed to be a very good presentation to then give to the court at the different hearings as the matters, you know, were finalised and stuff. And
can I say something about that, Caitlin?
Yep.
Because you asked me what I thought. It's always a good opportunity. But I think also, clearly, if we talk about the woman as the client, as the person who has been sleeping on the street and is fractured from family, or hasn't seen her kids, has drug and alcohol issues or mental health issues, whatever's happening, exactly what you're describing, the close contact, the working together to come around what needs to happen. In fact, it benefits everybody, because you're right. And so the flow back upstream to the court process is to say, all right, well, me, the court decision maker, looks at what you're proposing, the intensive outreach support worker, to support this woman who is currently remanded in custody. And because of what's proposed, I'm satisfied as the decision maker as to my obligations around risk, about bail, and I will let that person be in the community. And then we start this amazing, hopefully, interaction between the case manager, the woman, and sometimes even the lawyer can get involved. And the difference is that when you come to the point of sentence, and this is monumental, the point of sentence, and the reason bail is so important, and therefore the reason support for the woman in the areas of need she has, is that when it comes to the point where a decision is made about the penalty relating to the offence, is that there's something there that allows the decision maker to leave that person in the community. You leave someone in Dame Phyllis Frost, turn them down to the sentencing hearing, London to a brick, it is much easier to say, oh, well, look, you've done 30 days, you know, it's only this offence or it's that offence, I'll let you out. So there's your 30 days. Thanks very much. I'm back out. And what? Back out to a short engagement with somebody, or actually this is the groundwork that then leads into the legal process. And it really is why the marriage or the union between the case manager, the Caitlin, and the lawyer is so vital at every point from a legal point of view. From every point on that journey, it is vitally important to have that support. And that then should filter to the client. Who would have thought?
Also, if you don't mind me just saying quickly, when you said with the 30 days and then they'll get released to nothing, that does happen a lot. But also what I find happens as well is if they've not been given a chance to get bail and show the judge or magistrate or whomever it is that they can do it with the support and stuff, and they're still in, the judge a lot of the time will just say, well, you're in, you might, and I've heard it, you might as well just stay and finish your sentence and then either get released on parole or with nothing. You know, and also just quickly, one other thing that you mentioned earlier was about like the 4 things or whatever, like the good behaviour bond, the bail, good behaviour bond and stuff in prison. Once you've been in prison, you are not automatically, but pretty much darn well automatically put straight back into prison. Like that, you never go back downstream in relation to it's. You do, but it's not very often that you'll be given a CBO after being in prison. Like you'll be given like a shorter sentence for a lesser crime, but I do find that happens, but maybe not so much now with the outreach support, because you get that opportunity to show that you can. But yeah, that was just something I thought of anyway.
And it's another reason bail is vital, because it breathes air into these sentencing options. And we've had clients with really serious charges that are facing sort of years of prison, and one bail decision and success, you know, support, traction, the decision then about whether to send them back is much harder. And there's a family that's kept together. I'm sorry to cut you off, you go.
No, I was going to say, because I was just thinking before as well, it's like the nothing changes, you know, like you get, you know, remanded for like, you know, a month, and then you get bailed back out to nothing, to, you know, wherever you just came from again. Like if you don't know, like you don't know what you don't know, you know, like nothing changes. You're going to go back to what you know, what's comfortable, because of the fact is that there's nothing else in place. But, you know, like if you, like with the support and like a different approach, like that can help, you know, to see people divert from like, you know, the same cycle and stuff like that, and you know, build, find a better way of living, and, you know, build a new way of living, and yeah. So
I'd just like to take this opportunity in the discussion to highlight also some of the really incredible outcomes that Flat Out and the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women achieved together. And on that point of how important bail is, through the integrated and intensive assistance available through the Law and Advocacy Centre for Women and Flat Out, the Centre for Innovative Justice Evaluation found that 76% of women got bail on their first bail application that was supported through the project during the evaluation period. And that's significant because that is more than you would expect in ordinary circumstances, and that's based on the fact that Corrections Victoria data suggests that about half of the women who end up at Dame Phyllis Frost Centre have not applied for bail. And other data that was more recently obtained from the Magistrates Court, which is contained in a report called Constellation of Circumstances, suggests that about 50%, just over 50% of bail applications are successful. So the proportion of bail applications that were successful through this way of working is really significant, and a really important lesson for considering how to respond to the increasing numbers of women on remand in Victoria.
The magistrates really liked the program in general. They would often say or indicate in some way that they were really pleased that this little program was there in support of the woman, because it allowed them to feel comfortable releasing on bail, whatever their language is. But they did indicate that they feel that there should be better community support, that the woman's going to be, you know, able to avail herself of. So that feedback certainly came from the courts, that many people in the courts.
I think that's also like it's crucial because of the fact that, like when I was on KISS, you know, I had to keep continuously for like 4 months going to the court to try to like show where I'm at, you know, to continue to stay out in the community. As well as like with corrections, like you're just going to this place with rules, this place with consequences, this place with like, you know, not being able to find out who you are and how to get through things. There's no resources attached, you know, like like I think the model of, you know, a lawyer, like social worker, and the person who's needing the support is like a fundamental model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Sorry,
I think that's what's changed too, because I agree with you. Like, well, she didn't really say it, but I sort of felt that she's probably like about.
I would have if I'd thought of it.
Sorry, about with the 4 things, and I said like, and then sort of you went back, like once you're in prison, you went back to prison. I think that's what's changed. I think because like I've been out now for over 10 years. That was the case, I feel, when I was around. And I think that's because this kind of model wasn't around. And now that is giving women a chance to come out on bail. Yeah, we were getting bail just at some services and that, but those services weren't meeting us where we're at. They were surveilling us heavily. They were, you know, all that kind of stuff that we've spoken about. So with this service, it's like LACRA and everything, that they meet you where you're at and they actually support you and you get to build trust. And also with lawyers, when you're going in ad hoc or on your own bat, there's a power imbalance. It's not deliberate on anyone's part. It's just the way it is, and it's hard. So you sometimes, you know, lawyers are talking and you're like, what's going on? And you've got no support with you. Where with this service, you've got like sorry, I forgot, no, my head's gone. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The support worker there with you, or could be there with you if you chose to have them there with you, or make the calls with you, and it's a lot, especially when you've got a trust with that person, it cancels out that. You've got that there. So I think that's just awesome. And I think that's what's made the change.
Like connection is key to healing, you know? Connection.
Yeah.
I have actually many questions that I want to follow up, but we don't have very much time left. I wanted to ask you guys about, you just said connection is key to healing, and Jackie, you talked earlier about the importance of community. I guess I'm interested in hearing of any experiences you've had with what people sometimes call peer support, or being connected with other women who've had the same experience as you. Can you talk to me a bit about what that means in staying out?
Yeah, so I can talk about a 12-step fellowship, you know, the fact that it's like, you know, one addict helping another addict. So it's like one person who's been through something, be able to help another person who's gone through the same thing. Like that peer support model, being able to, you know, see other people who have gone through similar things, but, you know, have been able to either rebuild their lives, or, you know, and people are able to actually walk through, like walk beside and alongside people. And yeah, like there's no, you know, no surveillance, there's nothing that's attached to any other, like, you know, other organisation. There's nothing else that, you know, keeps somebody bound there. It's more about the fact that there's connection, the community connection. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. To be honest, for me, I didn't really have something that, yeah, when I was sort of stopping like my journey in prison and stuff, I didn't get involved with Narcotics Anonymous, just because of the fear of surveillance.
Yeah.
I never gave it a big enough chance to see that it wasn't about that and things like that. I didn't, other than the group, the women's leadership group I'm in now. All I can speak to is because I'm out of like the carceral system. Well, like, you know, you can never say never, but I hope to always be out of it. But with the group that we're in now, with my mental health and stuff, I've just seen such an improvement, and I just feel supported, and I see a future, I guess. I see more than what today is, and I never used to see it. I was always not always in crisis, but always struggling, always battling against things, services, whatever. Even when I've had, like, because I've had services involved for whatever reason since, you know, not recently, but a while ago, I had the support of the girls, and it was like they understood. It wasn't just someone saying, yeah, okay, oh, I'm going to tick this, or oh, I'll refer you here, or, you know, I'm not saying referrals aren't great, but in their own way. But it was just awesome. Just even just a hug or something like that, or after hours, and that's such a big thing with services, after hour thing. You know, we're not only in need between 9 and 3 or 9 and 4, you know, and that's something that you can eventuate from lived experience or community. And I think it's really important, you know, especially in kids as well, you know, that I forget there's a saying, I can't even think of it now, excuse me, but it takes a village. Yes. And it's the same everything. And there is no village. Where is the village? Please give me their number, you know, but we're making one here. Like, you know, it's, yeah, but it's just so important.
And I definitely agree with Jackie as well. Like, the fact is that the group that we have and the women in the group, you know, we all hold space for each other. We all support each other. And that, like, that helps with our own healing as well, you know, and yeah.
For other women
and for other women
as well. Yeah. So
opportunities for other women.
Thank you for sharing that, guys.
Okay.
And thank you, Jill and Caitlin. We have just 3 minutes left. I wanted to check whether anyone wanted to ask a question in that time. And if you would like to, please, I guess, turn on your video or just speak out.
In case anyone's going to ask whether I'm always this bright, no.
Looks like
I'm
you're
just very tall and very close to the light.
like you're at the courts.
What's that?
Looks like you're at the courts. That sort of.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Illuminated.
I hope you're not at home.
No.
That wouldn't have been really nice.
No, not very subtle lighting.
No.
Well, it looks like no one has any questions. Caitlin and Jill, did you want to add anything before I go to these guys for any last comments?
Caitlin?
The main thing I've always said since working for this program is how simple it is. And it's a wonderful thing because simplicity makes something achievable and you can put it in place. And it actually makes me really angry as well, because we don't need to be building more prisons. We don't need to be sending people to prison. We need to be giving people homes and support. And that's where we should be putting our efforts.
I agree. KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can I just say, I agree. If we don't start seeing people as human beings, as versions of ourselves, as with children, with parents, with grief, with issues, then we distance ourselves from our clients, from our point of view. But actually, we need to actually be where they are and listen to what's happening and hear what is needed. And lawyers, I think, are very good at holding their arm out and sort of saying, well, you can talk as far as here, and then I need to protect myself from you because, you know what, I'm not that different. And I think what this allows is to really puncture that a little bit and say, you know, if we start working as not a legal response to the woman, but actually talking about what else is happening, then we're all better for it, really. And I only endorse what Caitlin said. The prison is not the solution.
Did you guys want to add anything before we?
Just that you're right. I totally agree with that. it's true, exactly what you said with the, you know, just we've got to connect as all humans and we all bleed blood. Like, you know, I'm sure that, you know, and it can happen to anybody. You know, and if anyone thinks it can't, they're delusional, because it can happen to anybody, and it affects families, and we need to be keeping these changes happening, or keep funding into these services and changes, because it's showing, it's being proven. What more do people want? No more, like, yeah, pilot programs are great and stuff, but I know that happened a lot. They'd start a pilot program, then it's working, but I will finish it and do something else. No, keep it where it's working and give it more, because the more, if it's working already, give it more, and it's going to just keep flourishing and become a really big change.
We need to knock down the hierarchy and start, you know, bringing people down to human level. You know, that's
yeah.
Homes, not prisons.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
It's catchy.
Yeah.
I did see a question there though.
It was about our group, I think.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there have been a couple of comments and questions in the chat which we'll respond to directly. And it is 6:01. We are so grateful to everyone who's taken the time to hear about the lessons that we learned from the pilot project and the observations of these experienced and expert panelists that we have here tonight. Thank you, Jackie and Sarah, for sharing the parts of your story that really informed this discussion and really enriched it. I always love hearing both of you. As you know, I love hearing both of you speak. I think what you have to say about how things need to change is really compelling and insightful. Jill and Caitlin, the same to you too. The observations that you were able to make about what we need to be doing better and how we need to be thinking about systems change was really valuable. So I will take this opportunity to say goodnight to everybody. I hope people can get home to their families and loved ones quickly. And yeah, thanks for spending this time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Bye soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Classy, Megan.
I need to.
Well done, guys. I just arrived at home. The whole train had to listen to the presentation because I didn't have my earphones.
I'd say something, but I think there's still people on, so I won't.
All right, I'll leave you to it. Bye-bye. Fantastic.
Bye.